there it was. Loud, empty, embarrassing, playing every single viewer like the sucker they believe you are. In many ways, they're correct, because you've been conditioned to believe the sports world begins and ends with these frauds. And if you still think ESPN's Masters coverage fiasco was some kind of accident, then you haven't been paying attention for the last 20 years. This wasn't a mistake. This was a mission statement. When First Take decided to roll through one of the most prestigious events in sports without a legitimate golf voice, it told you everything you need to know about what ESPN thinks of you, the viewer. Not the sport, not the athletes, you. Because to ESPN, you are not a fan. You're inventory. The Masters, yes, the Masters, a tournament built on precision, history, and reverence, was reduced to a shouting match by people whose understanding of golf wouldn't fill a divot. And leading the charge, as always, Stephen A. Smith, the man who has built a media empire on volume over value, decibels over depth, and performance over proficiency. He and the others scream because they know the decibels drown out your common sense.
He was 12 shots back and pulled to within 3. I'm like, yo, the nervous, I'm like, all right, what's he going to do? You know how I am. I'm big on moments. I'm big on whatever. What intestinal fortitude do you have? What level of poise are you willing to show under pressure, et cetera, et cetera?
This is what ESPN does now. Not occasionally, systemically. They don't cover sports. They convert them into content vehicles for their personalities. The event is irrelevant unless it can be bent, twisted, and force-fed into a format that promotes the brand. You don't tune in to learn, you tune in to react, preferably angrily, because anger drives clicks, clicks drive revenue, and revenue, well, that's the only scoreboard ESPN actually cares about. Let's stop dancing around it. ESPN has no interest in expertise if expertise doesn't scream! Think about the absurdity. The Masters, arguably the most detail-oriented, mentally demanding tournament in golf, and ESPN's grand idea is to analyze it without a real golf analyst on set? That's not lazy, that's insulting. It's the network openly telling you that substance doesn't matter because they've conditioned enough of the audience to accept noise as knowledge. And if you push back, perfect. That's part of the plan. Outrage is oxygen in Bristol. They want you to complain. They want clips to circulate. They want social media lighting up with, can you believe this garbage? Because every complaint is another impression. Every impression, another dollar. Every dollar, another reason not to change a damn thing. This isn't journalism, it's provocation. And it gets worse when you follow the money, which ESPN hopes you never do. This is a network financially intertwined with nearly every major league and event it covers. Broadcast rights, promotional partnerships, cross-platform deals. This isn't a watchdog, it's a business partner. So let's ask the obvious question. When was the last time you saw ESPN aggressively investigate one of its own rights holders? Exactly, you won't. Because you don't torch the house you're being paid to decorate. Instead, you get selective outrage, manufactured controversies, stories inflated beyond recognition if they generate buzz, and buried if they threaten relationships. That's the game. That's always been the game. And then there's the quiet part of the industry insiders and what they'll tell you when the cameras are off. Originality? Optional. Aggregation is king. Take a story someone else broke, dress it up with louder voices, slap an ESPN banner on it, and suddenly it's theirs. Credit is a casualty. Speed is the priority. So when you saw that Masters segment, understand you weren't watching incompetence, you were watching strategy. No expert? Good. Experts complicate things. They slow down the shouting. All experts do is introduce nuance, and nuance doesn't trend. What trends is conflict. What trends is exaggeration, putting someone in a chair, turning up the volume, and letting them fire off takes that sound authoritative enough to pass as insight. And the audience? Hey, too often you eat it up. That's the real indictment here. ESPN doesn't lower the bar overnight. They lowered it gradually, strategically, profitably, until this is what passes for coverage of a major championship. So now we're here. A network that once had the resources to be the gold standard has willingly become a content mill, a place where the sport is secondary, the truth is negotiable, and the loudest voice wins. Call it what it's not. It's not journalism or analysis. It's entertainment. The E in ESPN always stood for entertainment. But don't insult people by pretending the rest of it still matters in the same way, because when you can't even bother to bring a qualified voice to the table for the Masters, you're not covering the sport, you're mocking it. And if viewers don't start recognizing the difference, if they keep rewarding this attention with clicks and blind loyalty, then ESPN doesn't need to get better, because they've already figured out they don't have to.